that wasn't your start. Your start was when you left home. So you live by the edge of your seat. How do I get out of here? What do I have to do? What opportunities do I have to create? Who do I have to talk to? What do I have to read? Who do I have to listen to? Not being able to control her own emotions would leave me in a state of anxiety, leave me in a state of fear. I'm not a victim. These things happened in my life in front of me, not to Shane. It's a reminder for me that life will happen. My reaction to what happens is the most powerful thing that I have control over. Sometimes I think the biggest risk of life is doing nothing at all. It's so easy to get caught off guard, but then we all know how to live this life. Put the action in, put the work in.
Are we all broken? Shane, welcome to the potty, man.
Nick, thanks for having me.
I want to dive straight in because as I was doing my research, I actually found an interesting quote where you said, there were days I never even thought I would see my 30th birthday.
Yeah.
Why?
All right. Well, that is a deep dive start. I actually was thinking this the other day. And it's so funny you brought it up now because just only a few days ago, I thought about this exact quote. So that's strange that I would think of that only a few days ago and you would then find that as a highlight for your podcast. When I was younger, when I was a teenager, when I was growing up, I didn't really have, I guess, that many people around me at that time for me to aspire to be anyone. Like I didn't know that 30-year-olds existed. I know that sounds silly. You knew there were people out there, but it wasn't an age group that I really was around. My mum and dad were a little bit younger. When I was young and thinking these sorts of thoughts, I just didn't think that the life I was living or the place that I was in was going to let me move forward and get past that. The purpose that I felt within wasn't there. As a young child, as a teenager, as a small kid growing up, I didn't actually know that life went on like that. Like I know that sounds so silly. I know that doesn't make too much sense probably when I say it, but for me in the moment when I was living my life in those years from when I was born to about 15, I actually didn't think any further than the present moment, which is great. And yet when I was living that life, I looked around, I thought, this can't be how I live my life forever. This can't be the way I would live. And how am I going to get past that age? And I just don't think it's going to happen. I really didn't have any confidence that I would live past 30. There's some surroundings and the environments, a lot of drug abuse, a lot of drug use, a lot of violence, a lot of mental and I guess, not mental abuse, but I guess mental neglect. That was there. So that was my framing to say, okay, well, how do you get from 10 or 7 or whatever age I thought that for a long time to this point? Yeah.
It's hard when that's all you're surrounded with. It's like, how are you meant to look into the future or know what the future should look like when all you're surrounded is with drugs, alcohol, that environment that you're in?
And I don't know that it was, so I guess all the people that have gone through whatever they've gone through in their lives, no matter what you have gone through, there is no contrast yet when you're young. You don't know that there's a better life yet. You don't know that things are done differently. You don't know that households are different. So when I was growing up, I remember having no idea that life could be different. And then if I was to spend a day at a friend's house, if I was to sleep over at another relative's house or another person's house or something, I would say, oh wow, this is strange. You all go to bed at a certain time, you all have dinner at a certain time, everyone has something to do, in their day, people are nice to each other. That's strange for me. It wasn't a life that I had really experienced too much of. Now, I didn't have the world's worst upbringing. Thousands of people, millions of people have a much worse upbringing than I have, but it's all individualized, right? In those years that I was a young kid, it was quite challenging. And I didn't have any contrast. So I didn't know there was anything different until I had moved out,
So many times we compare our lives or our upbringings to other people's and be like, oh, they've had it worse than us. But that kind of neglects your own feelings and what's happening in your own life.
It's like, who put the rating on pain? Like, oh, you're a 10, I'm a 7. Oh, yours is more valuable. Yeah. Like, that shouldn't be the way that we see pain or suffering or anything like that, because it doesn't devalue your feelings and emotions. So you're 100% right.
Especially when you're talking about mental health and depression, someone who's struggled with depression for 10 plus years compared to someone that's only just started struggling, they're going to be a 10, but that other person could be like a 5 because they've dealt with it a lot longer. Yet people are comparing, like, oh, suck it up, you shouldn't be comparing or shouldn't be complaining per se because someone else has it worse than you.
Yeah.
It is wrong because that's when people go into darker spirals. And that's why people don't come out of the spiral, because they're just stuck at that run.
Yeah. Yep.
What would be a typical day for you, like in your upbringing?
Yeah. So for me, when I was growing up, it was, my parents would be basically, I guess, hanging around the house, that for a long part of it. So I feel like there are parts of my upbringing that I've kind of just mentally blocked out.
Or pain reasons?
Not, I don't think, I just think a lot of it, I just feel right now doesn't serve me. Like it's easy to forget, right? And if I'm going to focus on my future, if I want to focus on, my individual family's future, it's just easy to say, well, your start really wasn't there. That's not where, even though that was my upbringing, that wasn't your start. Your start was when you left home. So for me, it's like, it was a little bit easier to kind of forget all the stuff that happened. But a general sort of day, depending on the age, right? So from probably the worst of it for me, or what I experienced and what I went through, would have been around the high school years, from year 7 to when I left home around year 11, year 10. And those typical days would just be me waking up in the morning, doing my thing, getting ready for school. Basically, if my parents had a job at the time, or they were working, or my mum was, or my dad was, or whatever it was, they would either be gone, or they'd be there. And if they were there, there was no real, I guess, family environment. The way I compare that now is through what I provide for my family. So my family, if I was to wake up and my little girl was awake, I would be, hey baby, how you going? How was your sleep? What would you like for breakfast? General questions. That wasn't something that happened. Like I would wake up and there would be no breakfast. There is no food. There is nothing there to eat. There is nothing there prepared. There is no routine. There is nothing there except for me to go, okay, I know I need to get ready. I need to go to school. Go to school, 6 hours spent there. Come home, either to family, sometimes not to family. Who knew? It was that the unpredictability of those years was probably what stands out the most, the inconsistencies. Yeah, you don't know. Like, so you live by the edge of your seat, come home, and then we wouldn't really I would probably go to my room or go out. So I would probably just leave the house and hang out more outside with my friends. Come back, there would be no dinner. There's no dinner time. There was rarely ever cooked food. Mostly it is takeaway. So it's McDonald's, KFC, which probably led to my passion for health long term, and which I see as a great present from my family, a gift, because it led me to be so passionate about food later on in life. I didn't know that then, but looking back,
passion is in the pain.
Yeah, exactly right. And so knowing there was no food, we would probably eat Macca's quite late at night, and it would be just watching my parents get stoned. If I was in that room, and that was for most of it. So different times, it's hard to narrow down to specifically how a day was, but that was your general vibe.
What's going through your mind? Like, what are you feeling? Do you feel alone?
Yeah.
Really you look at other people and their families, and it's just like you go home to yours and your parents aren't like other people.
And don't get me wrong, like growing up, like I said, you don't have contrast yet. I still loved my mom and I still loved my dad, and there was a lot of love there for them, because you don't know that this is not a great environment to be growing up in.
But you ask the questions.
Yeah, you start to ask some questions, why is this a little bit different? Did I feel alone? 100%, like 100%. It would be very confronting to have my mom opposite me or my dad opposite me right now, and to be talking to them about my upbringing, because they just don't see it from my point of view. They didn't live it. They lived their lives. They lived their experience of that time. I'm sure they were doing their best. I'm sure they have a completely different story of the entire period that I was living at home. But for me, being in my room alone in the ages of 7 to 15 really is when I remember the most, is that you're there with just no one to talk to. I was an only child at home. I have brothers and sisters with the same dad. But yeah, in my home environment, living there, I didn't have anyone there. So it was lonely. It was, I guess that's why I'm saying emotional neglect. I felt emotionally neglected, and that wasn't very easy to deal with. And I remember just listening to CDs like The Biscuit, Eminem, like that style back when I was a kid. So they were sort of got you through. There were lyrics in a lot of those songs that you would just put this music on, and you would just sit there for hours listening to things that kind of connected you.
Yeah. Blocking out outside noise.
Yeah. And so my alone and a little bit fearful as well would be the other thing. And again, I have no idea how my mum would react to this, but I was terrified that she would explode at any moment, get angry, get frustrated, get violent, physically not necessarily attacking me, but the environment around her, that rage, that anger, that frustration, that, I don't know, not being able to control her own emotions would leave me in a state of anxiety, leave me in a state of fear. I couldn't say the wrong thing. I couldn't do anything wrong. I couldn't knock over my drink, because if I did, it was the end of the world. And the reaction was from calm, pleasant, I guess, ignored, but then to what the fuck, like absolute level 10 frustration. So that anxiety was something that was a very common place for me in my upbringing.
Did that make you go into your shell a lot more and just keep to yourself?
It did. I guess you could hide a lot of that stuff. So although it did at home, because I wouldn't connect, right? Like I wouldn't come out of my little girl would do a million things that I never did as a kid. I'm like, she must feel safe and confident in this. This is great. Whereas I would never done any of those things from my memory, from my recollection. I wouldn't have done any of that stuff outside of the home. I didn't necessarily take that with me. It was kind of like a facade. It was a mask. It was, there's no need to be like that, but I definitely don't want to go home, because if I go home, that's how it's going to be, and I'm going to be alone and have that anxiety and have that frustrations.
So how were you out of the house? Were you one of those kids that were very out there to hide their pain, or were you that shy introvert?
A combination, depending on the circumstances. I could have been very introverted. I was always, so I think part of having anxiety, or part of suffering, I guess, a little bit with that as a younger kid, was me always observing my surroundings, always feeling panicked. Like, if I had to leave this room, how would I get out? If something bad happened, what would I do? Yeah, I'm watching your body language, the way you hold yourself, your tones. I'm listening to everything you're saying. I'm watching your eyes. So I'm not communicating yet, because I'm taking everything in. I can't do both. I can't be extroverted, but also know exactly what's happening in my surroundings. But because my surroundings at home made me feel so anxious, when I'm out, I feel that way, but I'm just watching, observing, taking it all in, and creating this whole thing in my mind. So I wasn't necessarily out there, but I wasn't completely hiding in a corner. So
you were there, but not so much there. You're in your head.
Yep, exactly. Taking notes, like, and analyzing everybody, putting them in hierarchies. Who's the alpha male? Who's not? Who's the person most likely to create tension? If I said the wrong thing, who would be the most likely to react? And I guess that's from being a kid, upraising that upbringing.
I can so connect to that, because I was the same.
Yep.
Very introverted. I'd sit here, and depending who I was around, if I was around people that I felt comfortable with, I was a totally different person.
Exactly.
But if I was in a comfortable environment or uncomfortable environment, I'll just sit there and just analyze and create all these scenarios in my head, just like you, like, how do I get out of here if something goes wrong? That really held me back.
Where did that come from for you, though?
So similar to you, I didn't have a bad upbringing, but my father was, I would say, emotionally unavailable. He was there, but just like your mum, a lot of bursts of anger and rage. At the time, I never understood that. Now, kind of diving a little bit into his story and his background, and understanding that as a child, his father wasn't so much there. When he was there, it was abusive.
Same, yeah.
So now looking at it, especially being a father now, I see parenthood, your biggest obligation as a parent is to do better than your own parents.
Yep.
And he has definitely done that, but he has a lot of trauma, a lot of pain that he hasn't dealt with and he doesn't know how to deal with. So when I was growing up, all I seen was anger, rage.
Yep.
And because I was naturally introverted, naturally shy, and we never had that connection, even from a baby, I would cry when he would come near me.
Mm.
So now looking at it, if my daughter did that, I'd be heartbroken.
Yeah.
So I feel there's an element of resent there, which is then why he's treated me differently growing up compared to my brother, because my brother's like spitting image of him, like great connection.
Older?
Younger.
Younger. Yep.
Yeah. So never had that strong connection. Slowly building, but that all started from me letting go of a lot of resent and anger to him.
Yeah.
I had to, because I blamed him for so much for how I was, how I acted. And yes, he played a part in that, but now, like, I'm turning 26 this year. You got to take personal responsibility for your life. You can't play victim and blame people for the way that you are. And once I let that go, and I was able to swap that with love and empathy and understanding, like, he's just doing the best with what he knows.
Yeah. Yep.
So from that, our relationship's actually starting to, grow and blossom, and we can actually have conversations. And like last year, giving him hugs and saying that I love you, like I never really used to do that.
Mm.
And now we can kind of connect on that level. It's made our relationship so much better, but it all starts from letting go of that anger and those negative energies.
100%. And I will be the first to put my hand up and say that I haven't done all the work required to heal at all, because it's painful and it's messy. And I'm 35, turning 36. And sometimes I think, you know what? I don't need to heal personally a lot of that stuff that went on if I can put that block. It might not be the healthiest way to deal with the pain that I had as a child. But you saying, you can hug your dad now, I couldn't even think of, like, that would make me feel so uncomfortable. So I know there's a lot of work to be done. I know there's a lot of resentment. I know there's a lot of frustration. I know there's a lot of all those emotions there. And I'm not here to say I'm a guru and I know anything about how to heal it. But at the same time, to be able to get to that space potentially would be a great option. It's just very difficult. I think, I don't know, when I think back, just that drug abuse makes me feel so uncomfortable. And like, are you even the person I knew when I was 11? I'm 35 now. Last time I saw you was when I was 15. Really?
Really?
Yeah, a long time. To physically spend time with was when I was 15. Once I left home, that day that I left home, I never went back. I never went back home. And we can go through that later if you want, that period of time when I decided to leave home and what kind of happened. But so that's how long I've been out of touch, out of connection.
How has that impacted?
I'm sure there'd be a psychologist watching that could tell you that I've probably never really dealt with a lot of the stuff that leaves. But the generation that I was growing up in, I don't know. I feel like parenting was very different now as it was then. So my mum, like you said, your dad was doing the best they can with what they know. I agree with that. I agree that my mother was doing, and my dad, I just don't feel like he parented me as much, but he was there. But I wasn't as afraid of him as I was my mum. But she was doing the best that she could with what she had. Yeah, I get it. But how do you do the best you can when you're addicted to drugs? When you're, there was a period of time where they stopped drinking alcohol, and then that come back, and then that come back with a vengeance, and then my mum would go out, she'd be disappeared for days. So I don't know where to start even unpacking some of that stuff.
It's hard because for them, from what I'm hearing, there's a lot of underlying issues there. Do you know much about their upbringing or anything like that?
No, bits and pieces. Because I was quite young, interpreting and understanding the interaction. Plus, my nan, she passed away, and that was the only interaction really I had with who would have raised my mum, my nan. And I get that there was some alcoholism stuff there as well from just watching, hearing, listening. So alcoholism stuff that was sort of ingrained then, and maybe some aggressive behavior from what I've heard, some stories I've heard too, but I don't ask a lot of questions. It wasn't my role as a kid to be asking questions and poking around stuff like that, but I was an observer and I was listening. And that kind of seemed like my mum. So they were very similar in that respect. So I was like, maybe they were very similar. Maybe that's part of, like, you know, you said that your dad was, his dad raised him a certain way and he did better, but it still wasn't exactly what you needed.
They still have all that trauma, that built up negative energy inside them. They don't know what to do with it. It is sad because who does that impact? You, me, the next generation. And for so many, they don't break the cycle. They don't leave.
No.
And that's where it just continues growing. And as a society now, that's why mental health is so poor. Alcoholism, drugs, depression, suicide, all that stuff.
It is on the rise, and it's a challenge. Like I said, it's messy for people. People don't. It's raw. You know, you open up some of these wounds, so to speak, that have left rotted for decades. I mean, you're going to have to deal with some stuff.
Yeah.
Do I know how to deal with it effectively and healthily? Not really. I think you do the best with what you know. And I do a lot of like self-analyzing and a lot of stuff like that to help me move forward. But so I can get to a place where I can be the best dad and the best husband. And you still see sometimes snippets of the things that you seen as a kid come up, and you're like, hold on, why am I feeling this way in this situation? Why is my first reaction to get frustrated? Like, why not see this in a different light? You know, when Quinn spills, and I've never ever yelled at Quinn for it, but I'll go, oh, if I had done that as a kid, the reaction that I would have gotten would have been very different to what I'm giving. I'm changing, you know, whatever it might have been. That's just a small example. But yeah.
Your time will come, right? Everyone's on their own healing journey.
Yeah.
But for you, I would definitely recommend down the track or whenever looking into that, because you'd be surprised.
My question has always been, and this, when is going back and connecting something that you just wouldn't tell someone to do? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
because it's sticky, right? I've had a lot of people tell me that, you know, go back and find her, call her up. I'm like, I did that for a long time, from 15 when I moved out, maybe to 17, 16. Spent a lot of time trying to connect. There was no energy there. So is it my obligation as an individual to go back and then go, hey, you know, you have to sit in front of me until I heal? Maybe that person doesn't want to heal. Maybe she doesn't want to help me heal. And that's where I think I get, like, if she wanted to. My mum has been the same since I was 15. My phone number has been the same phone number. Hasn't changed. I'm still in contact with my aunties and uncles to a degree. It's not hard to find me. Yeah. I own a business in Penrith for 11 years. I'm on the internet. I'm public. That being said, there's some stuff that I kind of like didn't want that to be all, like, anyway, long story with the social media side of things, but that's, you know, that's my business, a bit different. Yeah. But yeah, there's opportunity, there's ways to heal. And then I think to myself, I don't know if that person wants to heal. Don't know if I want to heal. There's a lot of that stuff then. And I always get sort of questions like, do you ever think you'll regret it? I'm like, how am I supposed to know? Like, I don't know yet. Like if your mother passed away, would you regret not healing, not going back and creating rights from wrongs? And I'm like, I have no idea yet. I don't know that. I don't know the answer to that question. Everyone tells me it's great. Everyone tells me it's the best thing. Like, you hear stories, but we don't hear the bad stuff either. Like, if there was something there, is there a time where you're like, you know what, maybe that upbringing served you for those years, and now it's that full stop, and you move on and you heal because now you create that change, and that's what I've done. It's not like I continued on that spiral, in my opinion, of what was happening and created this destructive environment where I become addicted to drugs and alcohol and was abusive to people around me. And you know, I didn't do that. I went, thanks for the lessons. I learned so much in 15 years. I appreciate every single lesson I learned, every single fear or emotion that I learned to develop quite well in just sort of metabolizing through my body. Thank you so much for those lessons. But now now as a 35-year-old, where do I go from there?
Yeah. And it's hard, as you said, like, they may not want to heal, or they may be exactly the same. And it's like, is it really worth it?
Yeah. Because you like, I think, and this is where places like, you know, there are websites out there, there are people that are trained professionals to answer my questions for me. And I've never tapped into that. I mean, you probably have 1,000 lists of things that people can see and do, and like write emails, talk to people on text and stuff, and get some good advice. But I always feel like it's always kind of sometimes cliche. Like, I'll go figure it out, go heal. I'm like, it's quite a sticky quite a sticky bunch of stuff to deal with, you know?
And the word healing like gets chopped around a lot later. Then it's like, are we all broken?
Yeah.
And it's like, just because you had not the best upbringing, that doesn't mean you're broken. Yeah, you may be asking a few things still, I don't know, but you've created a totally different life compared to where you were now. So I think you're doing a fucking amazing job. And it's easy for me to say, yeah, go back and heal things with your parents, but I wasn't in your position. I don't know you on a deeper level. I don't know your parents. I'm just talking from my experience, and my dad was nowhere near your parents at all. And I've seen him all the time. Like, I work with him. It was just that connection because we were so different. So in a way, it has made it easier for me to reconnect, because I think the barrier was more so communication, and actually because he lacked a lot of love growing up, by me showing him love, and ever since my daughter was born too, like, he's changed.
Yeah.
It's like, I look at him with my daughter and it's like, not like this with me. Like, you were a totally different person.
Grandparents.
Yeah. I was like, wow, like, it's awesome to see. And I think it has softened him up and has allowed him to open up a lot more with his emotions, which has then made our relationship a lot better too. So yeah, it's easy for me to sit here and say it. That's why I say everyone's on their own journey. And if your time comes to heal or, you know, work things out with your parents, or just have a conversation about your point of view, your perspective with your upbringing, it will come. But if not, you know, you're doing a great job at life right now.
Yeah. And so just in my view on some of that stuff that I'm thinking, I'm like, you know what is the most frustrating part? And this is like a therapy session for me, but the reason I blocked my social media is from, like, mostly, you know, my mum experiencing some of my social media contacting me, is because, you know, I wrote something. You probably see on my Facebook page. Yeah. I write a lot about my past, you know, certain things I've learned, situations that I've been in, I will write. And that is my way of probably venting a little, but also on top of that, hopefully connecting with someone who might be in a similar situation that knows that, okay, that's a bad experience, but there was a lesson in there. There was something you can take away from that. It's not all bad stuff, right? And I wrote this massive blog post, and then all of a sudden, haven't spoken to my mum in that long time. She pops up and writes, none of that is true, Shane. You're a liar. You're lying to people, blah, 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 blah. Like, just like rip me apart. Like, made me feel so unseen, so unheard, hurt again as a 35-year-old, I think I was 34 when I wrote that post. 34-year-old, I'm like, after all of what I've written, not just like, hey, I didn't know that this is the way that you've seen life and experienced life and felt life. I don't connect with it because I lived a different life when we were together. Like, she lived whatever life she lived, and she saw whatever she wanted to see, because it's perception, right? Yep. So she might not think there was a problem. But that was my experience. And so to devalue me so harshly publicly, I was like, maybe there is no, like, not healing, but maybe there is no reconnecting. Maybe like, okay, that was your opportunity to step in and say, hey, Shane, long time no see, long time no speak. Maybe I haven't fully understood your journey. Maybe we could have a conversation. But to just be like a child and say, like, you're a liar because that's not what she lived, that kind of really offended me. And maybe there's a lot of pain inside me that is more so the fact that I'm hurt and unheard. That creates me from not feeling like I could go back or could go and create this connection again. I don't think every single friendship and relationship we ever experience in life is supposed to be for us. Sometimes it happens in life because it can't happen in another way. I was born into that family. I can't change that. But what I can understand is that although this isn't happening to me as a child, it's in the way of me, and it's my job to either go around it, get stuck in it, or go over it. And so what I decided to do was to go, I'm going to go over it. I'm going to pass it. I'm going to get up and I'm going to go over these situations and I'm going to move forward. I couldn't change the fact that I was born in that period of time into that family. Do I want to change? Of course not, because it leads me to this point. Everything that happened because it couldn't happen any other way. And that's amazing, yes. But then I've decided from there that it didn't happen to me as a child. It happened in front of me. It happened. That was what was happening from me. My perception might change then, was me just deciding, am I going to go around it, over it, or get stuck in it? And I didn't want to get stuck in it because I'd already had all these life lessons of, if you get stuck in it, this is where you're going to be and this is how you're going to feel. and this is going to be your life. And I didn't want that to be my life. I didn't want to struggle for money. I didn't want to be addicted to drugs. I didn't want to have a poor connection with I didn't want to have a violent connection with my partner. I didn't want to have a shitty connection with my child. I wanted all the opposite to that. And so I don't know that there is the room for me to go back, and especially when I was publicly humiliated by that comment. And I went, you know what? There's no need for you to be here. If you're not going to acknowledge the fact that this happened in my life and this is how I felt, I'm going to block that connection from social media. Still could contact me face to face if need be or whatever. But all that other stuff is just like, I kind of blocked it off a little, you know?
Sometimes it's the best option. And the way, like, it's hard, but I now try and attack everything with empathy and understanding, like, her maybe reading that, yeah, that's your truth hitting her in the face, and hard for her to accept of, fuck, this is what my son went through and this is how he feels. And that's a result of basically me and how I raised him.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would have probably impacted her a lot, and that's how she's
reacted
and it's impacted you, man. But
yeah,
as you said, looking back at your upbringing, you could have stayed there.
Yep. But
you went over the top. And so many times people use their past as their excuse for why they are the way they are.
Yeah.
And I heard this great story, like there was two brothers who had like a pretty crap upbringing, similar to yours. You know, one went on to be successful and run their own business. Another one ended up in jail because they blamed their parents for their upbringing and they used that as an excuse, whereas the other one took personal responsibility.
Yeah, it's like, why are you successful? Because of the upbringing I had. And then goes, why are you in jail? Because of the upbringing I had. You know, they both blame their upbringing for their success or their disadvantages, so to speak, in their minds.
Yeah, and within that pain, within the things that we lacked growing up, we try and make up for now, especially, as parents, you lacked so much, I guess, love, and you now give that to your daughter.
Yeah.
That's the same with me. Like, my daughter's like the number one in my world, and I give her so much love, so much affection, and I want to spend so much time with her because I lacked that with my own dad growing up.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how that works.
I mean, you were given a gift from your dad, and I was given a gift from my mum and dad. When we see it in the right pattern, like if I see this in the right way, I probably might imagine if I had the most perfect upbringing, and then I had Quinn, and would I be saying and doing the things that I'm doing for her and with her if I'd had a different upbringing? No, I don't think so. I think I do a lot of the stuff I do not to make up for, not to like fill a void, but because it's like, it just seems right. And when it seems right, I'm always going to lean with that as to what I will do. I will do the right in most situations. And I think that's kind of like, I'm actually quite thankful. And although I can come across and sometimes seem a little bitter to my upbringing, right? I think it's natural when you have some trauma of some kind to have a little resentment, people say they don't at all. I don't know how they could say that because I have to understand that that's an emotion that I've dealt with. And then there's the other emotions. And I'm going to say, I can see both sides, the bitter and resentment, and then also the thank yous. Thank you so much for what you've created for me. Thank you so much for giving me the power, the confidence, the ability to leave home at such a young age and create from 15 to 35 what I've created. Because without those gifts, without those lessons, without what they were able to give me day in and day out for the first 15 years of my life, although negative from the outside in, sometimes looking, or without any of that, I might not have been able to do what I've been able to do. And it's quite powerful for me to think back and acknowledge and say, thank you for that as well. As much as I'm kind of upset that I didn't get the opportunity to have a mum and a dad in my life that gave me what I give others, like my daughter, but I'm so thankful for the other things they've given me. And then I've got to be careful too. If I give Quinn too much, I'm thinking, am I going to send her down a path the other way?
Like finding that.
Yeah. Like if I give her everything that she ever wants, because I'm so inclined to do that. I'm like, what do you want to go to the path with? And to do that, I'm going to be very careful with now how I'm going to raise her, because I know it's not the same environment. I know it's a different environment, which I don't know where the outcome on that side is. Yeah. I've never lived it. I didn't know. So even more fun being a parent.
Definitely is. How old is your daughter?
She is 6, but she'll be 7 in October this year.
Yeah, I seen you wrote somewhere, she's being the best dad is like your biggest life goal. And I'm assuming that stems from your upbringing.
Mm.
What are some of the lessons, being a father or a Quinn has taught you?
I've been lucky enough to have, in my opinion, 3 dads.
Yeah.
My real dad, so my mum and dad had me. And I didn't get an opportunity to have much to do with him until I think we had sort of dual custody until I was about 4 or 5. So I would see my dad on the weekends, and I have very fond, happy memories of him riding on his Harley, hanging out with him. You know, I also have fond memories of, you know, his parents, you know, my grandparents. And so he taught me a lot. And that helped me. I remember him teaching me to ride a bike, you know, like I was only 4 or 5 or 3 or 4, and they're the core memories that I was able to create with him. He passed away, maybe a little while after, but like maybe 5-10 years later. I'm really bad with dates and timelines, but that was the end. So 4 or 5, we stopped. I just didn't want to go there. There was some stuff that happened around that time when we were getting the dual custody. I think a lot of pressure from him and from his partner at the time, and I just felt uncomfortable. I'm talking about my mum's drug abuse and drug use, and there was a lot of stuff there. So I didn't want to go back. I was kind of very, very, very nervous to go back. Didn't end up sort of cutting that sort of time off quite early. And then my stepdad, who my mum was obviously with at the same time, but he was, a plumber. He very good role model in the fact that, you know, you go to work, you do your job, you try and lead a good lifestyle that way. So I had influence of those 2 men so far in my life. And then when I left home at 15, I moved in with another family who are the most amazing people on the planet, who let me stay with them from 15 to 20, 21, 22. So I spent 5 years or 4 years living there while I was going through school. And I met the dad of that family, Russell. And he has been in my life ever since. So from probably the longest influence I've had has been his influence. So I've been lucky enough to have 3 role models, so to speak, to learn from. Okay, I've had 3 dads, not just the one. If I just had the one dad or the one mum, and again, I've had 2 mums in that time too, because my mum, and then when I moved out of home, the mother of that household, Linda. And so I've been lucky enough to get so many parental role models and guides. And I've seen the bad examples. Okay, if you do drugs and you drink and you prioritize alcohol and things that take you away from your reality, this is the outcome that you'll have. And then I've seen things like, okay, maybe if you don't pick the right partner, so my dad maybe didn't pick the right partner, my birth dad, with my mum, and then if you don't pick that and work on that and try and keep that dynamic together and fix the problems that might come up, then you'll have a fractured family in that respect, and then there'll be stuff that comes up from that. So that's my message to me, to be a good husband. Even though he was probably, I don't know their dynamics, but let's just say that's what I've learned. And then I go, okay, well, when I was 15, I learned, in my opinion, how someone would raise a family. And Russell is the person, like I said, I spent the most amount of time with from 15 to 35 now, hopefully for the next 20, 30 years, has taught me what family is all about and what family should be all about. You know, being there unconditionally, all that sort of stuff. There's so much that he has taught me in that role, in that respect. And then I can say, okay, all these lessons I've learned from these 3 men and these 2 ladies, these 2 women, I've learned all that. And now I can apply that into what I'm trying to do with my family and my upbringing of Quinn and my relationship and marriage with Chloe. I've had so much input, and that's lucky. Like, not many people get that. Okay. And people go, oh, I just have my mum and dad, and they've got all their flaws and all their pros and all their, you know, whatever. You can only learn from 2 people, but now I've had those 2. I've had 1, 2, they have like 4 or 5 people that have really influenced my lifestyle, influenced the way of my life. And kind of that's where my goal is now. And then to say to Quinn, okay, I've had all these experiences, whatever you want to ask me, like, I'll be open with you. If you need to know what life's like on this side or that side, I can probably be your best bet to give you the right information. And that's kind of where I want to move down towards the future with her growing, and she is growing so quickly. I mean, I look back, I walked in today and I was like 3 to 6 months, I'm thinking, thank you, little girl, right?
Yeah, little girl.
And I was like, you know, and you're like, no, 1 year, it's been that long. I'm like, I remember congratulating you. I remember saying, man, not long now. And then it's been a year. Like, it just goes so quickly. It's amazing.
I think it's great that you had so many parental people, like guidance in your life, and that you were able to look up to and learn lessons from. Because what comes to me is the quote of, it takes a tribe to raise a child. And feel like we've lost that in a way.
Yeah.
You know, how are we supposed to grow, to evolve, to become, you know, the best version that we can be if we're only learning from one person?
Yeah.
Like imagine if you stayed with your parents, like you're only learning from them, that's all you're going to know.
Yeah.
Yet you left and you learned from all these different people, which in return has allowed you to be the person that you are today.
Yep.
It's so impactful to be surrounded by so many different people that can teach you different things.
Like I say, it's a gift. It was so lucky that I was able to walk out of my family home at such a young age, and that's why I thank my mum and dad. I said, thank you so much, because I couldn't imagine. We have 15-year-olds around us, right? And I look at them and go, I don't think they could survive a day if we just said, no, you're going to move out. Like, they wouldn't have a clue. I didn't have a clue. I didn't know what was going on, but I had enough strength, courage, commitment, whatever, to go, you know what? This is a challenge I think I can handle at such a young age. Such a thankful thing. And then I want to put that in, like, help Quinn understand that, you know, she's capable of doing whatever she wants to be able to do, and giving her all the tools that she needs to be able to do that and move forward and be strong and courageous. And I mean, I don't want her to move out, if you think at all. I want her to be living life till she's 45. But at the same time, I want to be able to give her the option. If she wanted to, she could. But I want her to love it so much that she doesn't want to.
What have been some of, I guess, the real pivotal moments or lessons from moving out of home? Because for me, like, I only just moved out of home last year. Like, I'm 26 this year, and if I sit here and reflect on where I was at 15, like, no way was I moving out of home.
Yeah.
Like,
I had to pack up all my Pokemon cards and stuff as well and take them with me. I didn't take any school books though. But yeah, I remember, so a pivotal moment. So in my mind, I think there's stuff that happens, I think, in our upbringings. I remember the day that I left home, and I think that was the full stop. Like I said, I put things in the chapters. I'm not very good with dates, but I know this was the first chapter, the first 15 years, I call it, right? Then there was the next, from 15 to 25, where I went through some relationships that taught me a lot. And then from 25 to 35, pretty much the last 11 years that I've been with my wife now. But that first full stop, you know, what did you learn? What did it teach you? You know, how did that happen? You just kind of I think you get so scared and so overwhelmed that those emotions just rush through you and give you so much energy and so much power and growth. And then everything that you do from that day forward, now knowing what you know about where your life might go or what might happen to you, gives you power to learn and research and like you've never before in your life. Because 15-year-old Shane before the day I left home might not have been like the day after. I was a different person. Yeah. The day after I realized I was never going home, I was that flicked the switch in me. It's like something just grew. Like I just grew another brain, and another heart. Okay, well that one seems a little bit damaged. Let's build another one. Let's start growing this other one. Let's start growing this other brain. Okay, you have those first 15 years under your belt. Now, where are you going to go, and what are you going to do with this opportunity? I got here, got to where I've got. But that was the first pivotal moment, and that was kind of maybe something you didn't get those extreme flood of like you have to at any point, and you're lucky enough to sort of, I was still lucky, but you're lucky as well. You got till 26 to do that and go, you know what, I need to move now. I need to flick that switch myself. I'm not forced to flick that switch. There wasn't like a circuit overload where the switch flicked for me. I feel like that day, there was such a flood of emotion that switch just like something in my body just like completely flicked over, like it just cut out, and then a new circuit went on. You're the electrician more so than I am. So you probably know that's probably either a good analogy or a bad one. But the idea for me, it was like something just broke the circuit, and then I've rewired it all and went, okay, let's move from here.
We both were on complete ends of the spectrum. You were forced to kind of move out, whereas me, like my parents, both, especially my mom, she's like, I never want you to move out of home. She always, in a way, yes, she loved me, but she coddled me, protected me, kept me in my comfort zone. So like there was no balance.
Yeah.
Whereas my dad's like, you got to go out, you got to do this, you got to talk to these people. And then because I was naturally shy, naturally introverted, and we never had that connection, he would make, well, I don't know if he purposely did it or subconsciously, but he would make jokes or say things like, you can't go talk to that person because, you're shy, you're scared.
Yeah.
So then my mom would protect me.
He's fine.
Yeah. So like there was no balance. So I wasn't able to, in a way, fully be independent and take well, I could take responsibility, but I was just so comfortable that I didn't. And it wasn't until
it was a warm pool you were sitting in comfort.
Yeah. Like I didn't have to leave. So why should I? Until my partner was like, because she moved into my parents with me when we had our daughter. And she's like, we got to move out. We need our own space. And I tried to delay it so long. And we ended up having arguments, everything like that, because I just wanted to stay in my comfort zone. But in reality, I was scared.
Yeah.
I was fearful because
of the unknown.
Yeah, it was the unknown. It's like, what happens if shit hits the fan or we run out of money, all that kind of stuff. Like you create all these scenarios in your head. But let me tell you, once I moved out of home, that was the best bloody decision I ever made. Like we're sitting here in a studio that I wouldn't have had if I didn't move out of home. I have all these things, have my own space for my partner, my daughter. Like I'm loving life right now, but it's all from stepping out of your comfort.
Taking that risk.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I think the biggest risk of life is doing nothing at all. I mean, do you know what I mean? Like people sit there and they say like, oh, how did you know, I opened up my business at 23, put all my life savings into that, opened up a personal training facility and wanted to help people get healthy and fit. Yeah, that was a big risk. I put in every dollar I'd ever saved because when I left home, I knew there would be no silver platter. There'd be no one. I remember having a conversation with Russell and the man that lives in the home that I moved into. So he said to me one day, Shane, no one's coming to save you. No one's coming to pick you up. Don't wait for that knock on the door. No one is going to be there and knock on that door for you and say, hey, we've missed you. We've been waiting this time. We've been saving money for you. That's not what's going to happen. You need to put your big kid shoes on and you need to start planning and doing and then having that creation, that risk, dive a little bit into it. Do what you need to do to push yourself in the direction that you're unsure of, because from that is so much growth. And you experienced that only recently. I mean, I could only imagine if you didn't do that, what you wouldn't have right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. You have to take action.
Massive action. And you always hear the good stories. There are 1,000 bad stories, and everyone always wants to talk and promote on social media about the good, right? And that's frustrating because I'm like, there's that much shit that goes on behind the scenes for people that isn't always good. I'm a big believer in like, if you're going to talk about the good, like how to heal and how to make things perfect and then recognize and understand that for every good story, there's probably like 4 or 5, and it's okay. There's no bad or good.
Yeah.
It's just, this is what happened.
Yeah. It's life. Like I'm sitting here now and I just said like, it's the best thing that happened that I moved out of home. Like this financial pressure there, because you got to pay bills. This is the first time I've had to pay bills.
Yep.
And like there's unexpected stuff that comes up. Groceries are expensive. Like I spent like nearly $300 on groceries today.
I probably got an avocado and that's about it, really.
And you don't get much for your money these days. And it's like, yeah, it's the best thing that happened to me. But there's a lot of financial stuff. There's a lot of different issues that come along with that. But that's life. That's a part of, growing up, being an adult, growing into the person that you want to be. And I definitely am on the path of doing that. So it's a hell of a journey, and I'm only just beginning essentially.
Yeah, 100%. When you're 20, you're so young to be 26. Yeah, 60 years ahead of you. I think I've been reading a book, 4,000 Weeks, and which is the average life expectancy of a human, right? Yep. So 4,000 weeks is the average amount of time that we'll spend on this planet. And I did the math the other day, and I'm more than halfway through. And for me, that's a pretty cool eye opener. I have, and this isn't a bad thing. You can let it overwhelm you and consume you and be like, oh wow, that means I've only got half the time. But that's a lot of time to live every day again in reverse and have different experiences, have way more knowledge, skills, and experience than I've ever had in my entire life. And now to do something with that again for 35 years, it's pretty cool. Like that's empowering in itself. Like, what am I going to do with that time?
Exciting. Yeah. Yes, time goes quick, as we know.
Yep.
Our kids grow up quick. Everything's happening so quick, and society's moving so much more quicker. It's like we lose track of time. Yeah. That's why we have to make the most of our time and being present. So many of us are stuck in the past, or we're too busy thinking about the future, either in a positive aspect or a negative aspect, and we lose sight of what's happening right now. Like, I think I put it here, how many seconds we have.
84,000.
Yeah, 84,600. Yeah, seconds. Like, just focus on 1 second at a time.
Yeah.
Being present in every single moment. Because
you spend that, if the quote you would have read was like, if every morning you woke up with $84,600 in your bank account, how would you spend that every day if you had to spend it all in the one 24-hour period, which is every second of the day, right?
Yeah.
Blows your mind when you start thinking about that in that form.
And we let one moment, 1 second determine if we have a good or bad day a lot of the times.
Yep.
It's just like, no, you just had a bad moment. You have all this time left to shift your mindset into a positive one and actually make this day worth it. Yet so many of us don't.
Yeah. I think where I used to live, and I think that, like I said, that first chapter was projecting far too much into the future. That anxiety was part of that. Part of having, that sort of chronic anxiety is the fact that I have to, in my mind, have to know every scenario that possibly could happen in any moment of any part of my day, let alone the next decade of my life. So that was where I spent a lot of time trying to say, yes, most of that stuff isn't going to change anyway, no matter how much I worry about the potentials. Potentially financial stress, potentially a relationship issue, potentially a sickness, potentially a death. Like, that stuff is potentially going to happen at any one of us, at any moment of any day. Yep. And for me to keep projecting that far into the future is only stealing from my present moment. And so the world, and I think it's a Peter Crone quote where, basically nothing else, like, this is the way it's going to happen because it can't happen any other way. This is the way that life is going to go because this is the way you're living it. You could think about all the other options that you wanted to change and what you could have done, what you could have said, but none of that ever happened. You're wasting your time, And so now it's a big reminder for me, and it helps me centralize my thoughts a lot more, even though the anxiety is still going to creep up on me. Even though I'm going to feel overwhelmed, I know that, okay, whatever happens is going to happen because it can't happen the other way. My reaction to what happens is the most powerful thing that I have control over.
Exactly.
Well, that helped me so much to go, yep, even if the worst thing happens, you can't change that now. That's happened because it didn't happen the other way. Even though you thought it could have happened if you arrived home earlier, if you, whatever it might be, it didn't. That's the way. So deal with that. Like, don't lose sight of what you're trying to deal with. And then now your reaction is going to make the biggest difference in life from this for you and others. And not just on you anymore, it's on those around you, especially when you have a family. My reaction to how everything happens. I could be in a serious car crash. That could happen. If it does, then my reaction to that in the moment is and then hopefully the people surrounding me are the same or very similar to me in that thought, so that we can all move together faster to a better state.
We're always in control. It may not be in control of the situation, but we are in control of how we react to that situation.
Yep.
And essentially, such is life. And I'm pretty sure you got a tattoo.
I do. Yeah. Yep.
Is that part of the reason why you got that tattoo?
Such as life was a tattoo that was not a Ben Cousins thing, because that's where everyone tells me that it was, because he was on the front of the Telegraph with Such as Life being arrested in Perth, I think it was. And then everyone's like, oh, you got that tattoo to look like Ben. I'm like, no, I don't even know. There's no part of my body wanted to be tattooed the same way as another individual for that reason. The Such as Life for me was, and not even a Ned Kelly thing, like it's, people think, oh, it's a Ned Kelly. Not even for that. Like I was saying to you, like, I didn't have a choice with a lot of the stuff that sort of happened back then. Like, I was born where I was born. The things that happened in my life happened in front of me in my life, not to me. I'm not a victim. I'm not a victim. These things happened in my life in front of me, not to Shane. Very powerful distinction. This happened to me. There was neglect in the house, but that was just who they were. They weren't necessarily neglected. They would have neglected any child that was there, not just Shane. I'm not the bad kid. I didn't do anything. It's not my fault they neglected me. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So the Such as Life is like, such as life. Like, that's a cool story, but don't play on the fact that it could be all about you. It could be this victim mentality. It's a reminder for me that life will happen as it's supposed to happen, and everything will still go on. And I can be left behind in the 90s and 2000s where I could still be in my own mind right now, could be stuck there waiting for someone to come grab my hand still and say, let me lead you through the next 20 years. Or I could say Such as Life and move forward, which is kind of why I got it. I got the Southern Cross because I thought that was a cool patriotic thing to get. So like every 18-year-old boy that's like, what I can get as a tattoo is a Southern Cross. And then what?
Life happens for you, not to you. If so many of us are stuck on life happens to you.
Yep. Happens in front of us, and it'll play what it plays, and then it'll fall the way it's supposed to fall, then you've got to play that lie, right? Like, I'm in the rough at the moment. I wish I was on the green. Wish I was cruising in my Lambo in the green, like all those other guys on Instagram. And then you're like, all right, I'm out of the rough and I'm in the freaking bunker. Like, I'm stuck at the moment. But it's just, I need to now play the surface as it lies. I don't need to, like, yeah, it's going to change. Life is going to change. And I just got to wait for that moment. As long as I'm doing all I have to do and I'm creating the best environment for myself to see and to get out of change and highlight the areas that the change will exist, then I'm doing all I can, and I can't do any more than that. Worrying and frustration and anger and all that stuff isn't going to serve me anymore, and I'm not going to get out of the bunker any sooner if I keep getting the shits and frustrated and fight people and get angry and yell at people and blame people. I'm not getting out of the bunker any quicker than if I say, well, I can see a little bit of a used path on that side. The sand is a little more dense there. For me, that's the whole listen to other people who've been in situations like you. Then you're going to walk out of it a little easier, a little sooner, rather than just keep hitting away at the sand and digging a hole for yourself and making the sand looser and looser and looser. Look around. Where was the last person? Everyone's been here. I'm not the only one to have an upbringing the way I did. There was thousands of kids that I knew that were similar to me. Worse, I listened to all sorts of podcasts with stuff like this. And I'm like, yeah, man, like, that's challenging. We've all got it, you know? I just need to look around, though, when I was in that environment, in the rough, in the bunker, to say, well, how do I get out of here? What do I have to do? What opportunities do I have to create? Who do I have to talk to? What do I have to read? Who do I have to listen to? Because if you listen to the wrong voices, if the people around you, if your circle of people around you are like, this is life, like this is your life, Shane, this is how you're meant to live it. Now you will go and you will drink from Wednesday till Monday morning, and then you will drink at work, and you'll do drugs on the weekend, and you'll avoid that's just our life, Shane. That's part of the circle you're in. I can fall into that circle any day of the week. I can do that. But it wasn't what I felt was my passion, my purpose. And I didn't know, well, I knew then that that wasn't for me. But at the time, I didn't know how to get out. I had to look around and try and find and listen to people who had done that, who had served their calling and moved through and then left a bridge or a trail for me to even closely mimic to get out of that rough or out of that bunker.
Yeah, you have to surround yourself or listen to those people, because you become the average of the 5 people that you surround yourself with or listen to, and people may be in a predicament that you are in and they don't really have positive role models around them. But with technology, you can listen to a podcast. It doesn't have to be the people you surround yourself, it's who you listen to. Yeah. You're listening to 5 different people talking about, growing a business or becoming the best version of yourself, health and fitness. You're going to be more inclined to go in that direction because, if this is what life could be like. It doesn't have to be like this. I can go in this direction.
No choices.
Yeah. And it all starts from just what you plug in here.
Yep.
So important.
I didn't notice that with music was a big influencer, and I didn't realize how powerful music was. It got me through those first 15 years, that first chapter. And then I remember a little while ago, I was listening to some quite negatively lyriced music. Love the sound of it. Still love the songs. Like they hit a note. They invoke an emotion in me that I do connect with. And yet I was like, every day I'm waking up a little sadder. Like I feel sadder today having listened to 2 hours of that stuff last night. Like I went on a walk and I listened to this music and I'm like, man, this is really keeping me in a place that I don't want to be. So I stopped. I still every now and again, I like some of the songs. Yeah. I'll go back to that music, but I don't now have it playing over and over in my head. And I think that's the same as if you have someone in your life that talks to you like that all the time. Like, a person that you hold on a pedestal or one of the 5 people you do surround yourself with. If they're that negative voice, you've got to get away from it for a while. Not forever. Maybe you can always, take it in doses. Yeah. You've really got to change that voice. You got to change that narrative that's probably coming in a little bit more, especially if you're not strong enough to do it on your own.
Yeah. Especially for someone, at a young age, you went through what you went through. For me, at a young age, being told, I couldn't go speak to people, I wasn't confident enough, essentially I was a bitch because, I couldn't do those things. You start to believe it and it becomes your story.
Your belief system.
Yeah. And it's, for me, for a long time, I was like, oh yeah, I can't talk to these people. And then
that's the dangerous part, right? When now you believe what that person said.
And anytime it came to me actually having to speak to people, my anxiety shot through the roof because I thought it was such a bad thing and I couldn't do it. I was going to stuff it up. It's going to go bad. Never happened.
Look at you now. Look at you now. Fine now. Able to do it and good content, creative stuff. Like it's something that you're pushing yourself towards to be able to break that cycle, that belief. You've got now that much data behind you to suggest that was never you, that isn't you now, and that will never be you in the future.
Definitely. And it all comes down to perception as well. Like I used to see anxiety as such a negative thing, so bad, until I was on social media doing like Instagram Live and someone jumped on and he goes, have you ever looked at anxiety from a different point of view of it's actually a sign of something that you need to go towards? It's not bad. It's actually telling you that you need to go have that conversation. You need to go start that new hobby, jump out of your comfort zone. Like it's actually a sign of something good. It's not bad. And ever since that day, it's just shifted my mindset. And now I see, and because I've done a lot of research and stuff, there's massive correlations between anxiety and actually excitement. Same
awareness and
all that kind of stuff. And I was like, wow, anytime I feel a bit anxious, I'm excited. This is good. Like this is something that I have to do. Even before this podcast, I still get a bit nervous and a bit of anxious because like I haven't met you before. I don't really know you. Yeah. And I kind of resort back to the old way of this is scary.
Person is to my environment. Yeah. And I'm the same. Like, the podcast that I always jump on, I'm like, you know what? I'm so like, I'm got that much data backing that up, but I still get a little nervous. And you're like, because you don't know how it's going, but then as soon as you press record and you start a conversation, you lean into that, you start to embrace those emotions, it all just dissipates. Like it just leaves the body. Like it's not there anymore. It wouldn't be there. It's not there for me. I was a little bit, how this is going to go, And then you start talking, you start communicating, and you start just dropping your guards, and then it comes out, and it comes out nice,
It's just the build up where you create those scenarios in your head. Like I was walking in the house, looking out the windows, I'm waiting for you to come. I was like, fuck, it's 3:00. Where is it? I was like, just relax, Nick. It's all going to be good. He's going to come. It's going to be fine. It's going to be an amazing conversation, which it has so far. And on the topic of anxiety, I was reading a lot of your blog posts and man, you are very self-aware, self-reflective. And I've really loved those posts. And there was something that you wrote was that pressure in your head, that feeling of suffocation. I wish I could tell you I found a way to manage it. How do you manage that anxiety and that pressure in your head now?
I think, and what I wrote after that would have been, it doesn't get much easier. I wish I could give you some positive. It was a letter to myself, right? Is that the one that you wrote? Yeah, a letter from me to me. I actually have a podcast on that one or whatever, the Shane Talks one on that, and I read it out, and I was like, wow, this is hard to read. But yeah, the pressure emotions, the stuff that I feel like when I let myself become overwhelmed with those emotions and those things that are creating the pressure in my chest, like I feel like my heart is going to explode. I feel like my mind can no longer withstand the pressure that's inside of it, especially during COVID when our business was shut down. Like we were, the day after they sort of announced what was happening, our business was no longer a thing. Like
is that your sole source of income?
100% income for two of us. That's a dual income source. So me and my wife, we took it like, we were like, oh, we're exhausted, we'll take a little lay down, right? So we lay down, and we'll get back to what you wrote there. It's the story on the side. Laid down, woke up. This is when I felt all these emotions the most recently, so it's easy for me to remember, but woke up to 50, 60 text messages and messenger messages. What are you guys going to do? The gym's shut, the government's closed you down. It's like, what? Like I had no idea what was going on. And then I got to work. I'm like, okay, there's a way out of this. And so that pressure that I feel, like I felt this overwhelming sense of, I think I'm going to pass out. Like, I don't know that I can deal with this. And then I went, but there's a way through, and all I have like in front of me right now is a way of solving the first step and solution is that I need to get my members training gear. I don't know that we'll reopen ever again, but I need to get them a barbell. I need to get them a dumbbell. I need to keep them happy, because if they are moving, then they're stress-free. Exercise, hydration, nutrition, sleep, all those things help with those things I mentioned there, the anxiety, the pressure, the stress. If I'm not moving, if I'm not moving my body physically every day, at least for 20 minutes, like I have to do something for 20 minutes, mostly. Some days I'm tired. So then nutrition, if I'm not eating a colorful amount of food to help with my psychology, if I don't eat healthy food, how can I possibly believe that my brain would have enough power in it to be able to think differently? I can't eat shit food. I did that for the entire 15 years I lived at home. I ate shit food and it was hard. My brain was struggling. Now I eat a healthy diet and I think, okay, the more color I can get, the more energy I've got. And it's not going to solve my problems, but at least now that I can tap into that energy in my mind from the nutrition that I'm putting into my body.
And on that, you seem like a good cook.
I'm the lazy cook that finds a really good way of making it look nice.
But it looks good. I'm like, I want to eat this.
Yeah, slow cooker, they're the best. They're your best friends. And then hydration, stuff like that. So that part there that I wrote to myself in that blog, to the younger Shane, the 14-year-old Shane, the 15-year-old Shane, right before he left home, as a 35-year-old man writing back to my old self, was to say, I don't know that this will ever end for you. I'd still get all that. But I know now there are tools and mechanisms that you use much more efficiently and effectively to support yourself. Because I don't think it ever goes away. I don't know that it's ever going to, I don't think I'm ever going to be anxiety free. I sometimes, fall into like the world that's challenging stuff, but that stuff is there, like it is in everyone, to different levels and different amounts. But now I have a whole bunch of tools and things and experiences that I've gone through, some new skills, some new experience, and a lot more knowledge than I've ever had in my life to deal with that stuff. That is important. If I don't learn from all that stuff, what's the point in going through it? So yeah, that stuff that I wrote there and what you brought up that's probably how I would sort of answer that question.
All comes down to really prioritizing our health. If we're looking after our health, training, eating, hydration, even, relationships with people, we're going to be in such a more positive mindset. And I was watching a Netflix documentary. Have you seen Jonah Hill's one where with his psychiatrist?
No, I really want to watch it, but is it good?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Because I need someone to clarify that stuff for me because I don't have time to waste doing a shit documentary.
I enjoyed it. There was a lot of good lessons. And
Netflix film.
The thing that I got from it, and he said, like, anyone can do these three things. It's focusing on your life force, which is your physical health, your relationships with others, and the relationship with yourself. Anyone can do that. Anyone can go and exercise, go for a walk, eat healthy, hydrate. Anyone can go have a conversation, whether that be on social media or go to lunch with someone. Anyone can sit there and journal, meditate, build that relationship with yourself. Yet so many of us get caught in society and in the rat race of going 100 miles an hour that we never actually disconnect to reconnect with ourselves. And it's so important that we do focus on our life force so that we're able to turn up as our best self, not only for ourselves, but for the people around us. It's so pivotal. So yeah, definitely go give that Netflix series a watch.
100%. And like you're right, I guess sometimes as well though, people also think like, okay, I can't disconnect because I have a 50-hour work week to do. I also have 40, 50, 60 hours of parenting to do on top of that work week. I then have to be at least somewhat present for my other half, my wife or my husband. I then have a bunch of friends who are going to require some attention because otherwise they're going to think I'm ignoring them. I then have to go then keep my extracurricular activities up. I have to go and do other things, other hobbies. I've then got to find time to meditate, put my slow cooker on. I've got to get time to the gym, and it can become overwhelming and we just lose sight. And so one of the things that I try and say to help some of my clients do better is that just create a whole bunch of things in a day that you can't fail with. If that's a 1-minute meditation, if that's a 2-kilometer walk, if that's a 50 push-ups a day, if that is a try not to drink today and try and only hydrate with water day, something that you know that you can do without failure.
It's non-negotiable.
Exactly. Okay, this is what I'm going to do every day because it's that easy that I shouldn't be able to fail it. Like it's that simple. And you're like, oh, what's the point in a 1-minute meditation? Well, do it every day and tell me. You then tell me what the point was. I'm happily for you. If it's that easy, there should be no reason for you not to do it. So do the 1 minute a day. If you see value and benefit, do 2 minutes a day. And then that's what I'm saying, like make it so easy you cannot fail so that you can then tell me what the benefit was for that. People go, what's the point in training if I'm only training for 7 minutes? I'm like, I can give you hundreds of workouts that you won't want to train more than a 7-minute period. Like I feel like that guy from, what is it? Something About Mary, 7-minute abs. Do you remember that? Have you seen Something About Mary? Oh, this is, anyone at home, please comment. Anyway, so a 7-minute workout is valuable. And if it's that easy, well, then show me how easy it is. Because it's that easy. That's not going to make any changes. It's that easy. Well, prove to me that doesn't make any change. Show me. We're doing the 2K walk now with all my members. I'm saying every day you can do 2 kilometer walk. Like you can do that. It's that easy. You cannot fail. And if you can't do 2, do 1. But the goal is just to do it and see how that makes you feel. What does that create for you? Where does that put you? For me, it puts me in a space of small wins. Every day that I do that 2 kilometer walk, and I've done that now every day for 14 days, that was my goal, is to do something so easy that I couldn't fail for the next 30 days. And for me, that's a small win every single day. Small win, small win, small win, small win. That it's snowballing into this giant feeling within me. This, I'm going to take massive action in other areas of my life now because I've made so many small wins and I've proven to myself that even the smallest amount of action can make big change.
Builds that confidence, that momentum, getting 1% better every single
Exactly. It's the definition, but we don't apply it because it's too easy. It's not good enough. It's not big enough. It's not extravagant enough. It's not life-changing overnight. Well, no one said it had to be. What you need to realize is that one little thing that you did that you could not fail at is going to build you a win, and those wins are going to compound, and that compounded interest is going to pay off in 5 years or 10 years, not straight away. Put the time in. Yep. Beautiful.
And look at the most successful people in the world. Yes, some are overnight, but they've built from the rock bottom all the way up. Long-term success, compounding time and time and time to now where they are now. Yeah, we live in a society where, we do want the quick fix.
We want that return. We want the Bitcoin return, right? I put 5,000 in overnight and I'm a millionaire. Well, unfortunately, not much in the world works like that. And you've missed that boat, by the way. That's ended now.
Now it's all crashed.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got to make sure that you're looking for long-term stuff. It's not going to happen. It's a once-in-a-lifetime thing if you could do that. You might be lucky, but 99% of us aren't going to get it like that. Life's not going to be like that for us. We've got to compound it.
Especially when it comes to personal development as well. That's up and coming. A lot of people are doing a lot of personal development now. But a lot of people are doing that and looking for these external modalities to get that quick fix. But a lot of the times, the answers are within. We just got to go internal, but it's uncomfortable to look ourselves in the mirror and to reflect. And for you, writing these blogs, do you journal as well? I'm sure I get the vibe that you're very self-reflective.
I write the blogs, and so therefore I feel like when I write a blog, it means I've got to get some stuff out.
Yep.
I don't journal as often as I should. I have journaled. I just find that I mentally journal. So I'm lucky enough to have a lot of spaces that I can talk at. I've got, our gym. I've got the Shane Talks podcast. I've got the People First podcast. I've got all our social media. I had to put a lot of stuff out. In looking at that is me journaling. I'm putting out stuff that I believe to be about health, psychology, lifestyle. All that stuff's going out of me every single day. That journaling is helping me understand those thoughts, but I'm going, okay, everything that I put out, yes, it's a message to the world. Like I'm putting it out there for the world to listen to. But really it's just a message for me talking to me. It's a message to Shane, from Shane, but putting it out via the world. So that's how I look at my content. I'm putting stuff out there that I need. Like half the time we go, oh, was that about me? I'm like, no, it was about me. Like what I spoke about wasn't about you at all. What I decided to have a blog on or a quick little chat on the podcast is not about you at all. It's about me. I needed that message. We might share that need for that message, and you might need it as much as I do. It wasn't about you though. Because like, oh, we had was it about me? Because I said that thing, and I'm like, no. It really wasn't. Sometimes I'm sparked to think from conversations, but most of the time that message is from Shane to Shane via the world. And I think if we all start doing that either in our own notes, you can do it the same way. Everyone's got access to social media these days. And then we can all have that little opportunity too. So I don't journal per se, but I think that is exactly a very similar thing, but with the way I can do it easily and the best for me. Because sitting down to write with a 6-year-old means we're going to then color in and then draw, and then I'm going to play Barbies. Done. So there's no more journaling.
Yeah.
So
I love that you brought it up, because especially if we were to jump into podcasting, a lot of people feel like if you're running a podcast, you've got to have all the answers. You got to be the guru. It's like podcasting or business is just as much your vehicle as it is your audiences or your members or your clients.
Yep.
You're on the same journey as them. You may be 1 or 2 steps ahead of them, but you're still on a very similar path. And if they can connect and resonate with that, they're going to be more inclined to come along for the journey as well. So it's very pivotal that you understand, like, you're not perfect. You're not going to have all the answers. Use whatever tools you have, the gym, podcasting, as your vehicle to express how you feel.
Yep.
Because some people may hate journaling. So, okay, have a 10-minute conversation with yourself while you drive to work.
So make mental notes, like the memo app in your phone, like the voice app.
Oh, I love it.
You can just leave yourself mental, like conversation, like have a chat with the day, how it was, and then listen back to it, download them all, put them in a little file for yourself. And you've got like a catalog of your thoughts, and you just put a little title on each one. It's a great way of doing it. Because I like to type when I'm in a zone. One of my most amazing things to do is to find a space about 150 kilometers away from my house, right? Which is freaking far, like over an hour away. Because I feel like that disconnects me from all the ties that I have and interruptions. I then like to find a space just to sit down and write like stuff. And I would say on the borderline or the spectrum of dyslexic for sure. Like I just know that what I'm saying matters to me, and I feel it in my soul. Although it's not written grammatically correct and not spaced out and paragraphed and full stopped, the message is what I'm trying to get across to the people. And that's how I really enjoy that. Get away, find some time to sit down and just put my thoughts onto some paper and on the laptop mostly. Handwriting's terrible. But type it all out, or jump in the office and just hit record on the old podcaster and just let rip and just see what happens, what comes out. What is my inner being trying to say and tell me that I now need to share that? That's kind of how I feel about it anyway.
You have to disconnect to reconnect, because so many times we don't know what's inside us until we actually start writing or start talking, and then all this stuff just comes out. And then you reread it or you re-listen to it and you're like, wow, this is how I feel. This is what's happening. And you start asking questions. So then you can go deeper and deeper again, which is what I've been doing. Journaling is like, okay, I'm writing how I'm feeling right now. What are some deeper questions that I can ask around this? And a great example is over Christmas, I wasn't such a big fan of Christmas. I was like, the Grinch. And I wrote that in my journal and I sat back and I'm like,
am I really?
Yeah, am I really? And why am I? And it came from the place of not feeling good enough if I didn't give someone a good enough gift. And I felt like if I was going to do gifts, I wanted to do it big. But I'm at this stage of my life, I'm not able to do that. So I just didn't do it at all. So I didn't get cut down. So I didn't feel worthless, not good enough.
Have to learn to digest that emotion.
And from that, I've been able to understand, like, it's the thought that counts. If that other person doesn't like your gift per se, or whatever you give them, who cares?
Yeah.
It's the fact that you actually thought about it and to give them something, and it makes you feel good. Then the secret to living is giving.
Yep.
So, just being able to journal that has actually really shifted my mindset towards that.
It makes a big change in the way that you see the world for the day. And you're right with the gift stuff. Like, I do my best to think of something that will make someone smile first and foremost, not how expensive something is, or is it the Rolex, or is it the crusted, like, everyone's like, yeah, that would be great. But that emotion for receiving that would wear off a lot quicker than a hand. People had, I would rather a Rolex hand. But say, like, I can tell you this for a fact. You can give me a Rolex. I'm going to love it. I'm going to wear that shit out of that Rolex. I'm going to wear it every day. I'm going to go, look at my Rolex. Just, what's the time? That's right, on my Rolex. I'm going to do that. But the difference and the feeling that I have when Quinn will write, I love you, Daddy, Merry Christmas on a A4 piece of paper and fold it in the middle, it's got nothing to do with the quality of the gift, right? You want to go big and you want to buy them the best present ever. But if you buy them the thoughtful present, that emotion that I receive from that, everyone's like, as if a card from a 6-year-old that has I love you, Daddy on it is better than a Rolex. From a financial standpoint, you're right. Like that isn't, there's no financial value on the card. But the emotion that it puts in me, the feelings that I get are the same. I feel amazing. I love that card. I want to get that tattooed somewhere on me. I actually still need to get that. She wrote, I love you, Daddy, once on a card, and I still need to get that tattooed somewhere. And I take it to the tattoo artist and get it tattooed at some point. But the emotion that rolls, I'm like, dude, you gave me a Rolex. So thanks so much. Like, you're the best. And then I'm like, my little girl gives me a card. I'm like, I can't believe you wrote this. I love you. Like, same thing. Like, the same emotion. One's valuable, right, in the financial sense, because the humans value it, right? The people around us value it. But that feeling that I got is the same. And so therefore you're saying, like, yeah, it's about that. 100% it is. And then that, if you were to do that, say you were to be Quinn giving that to me, what emotion is in her when she sees my reaction? But the flip side, you give those gifts out this year. You write me a letter saying, hey Shane, thanks for being a mate of mine. I appreciate everything you do for me, blah, 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 blah. That is a gift to me. Some people don't value it, but they're not your friends because you wouldn't connect with those people anyway. So it makes complete sense to me.
Yeah, feels good. You being able to give something to someone because you're giving back. And as I mentioned before, the secret to living is giving. So yeah, it's so important to one, give, but also, reflect as we've been talking about, and whether that be journaling, voice memos, whatever the case may be. You need to have those internal conversations with yourself. Even when they are tough conversations, you need to have them. Don't look for external factors, modalities to try and get all the answers. Yes, they can help to a certain degree.
Yep.
At the end of the day, you have to take action and you have to do the inner work because no one else can do it for you.
Like I said, no one's coming to save you. Unfortunately, there are people out there that will pull you along on the boat and have a line that probably has been used before to get into shore if you're stuck on a boat somewhere, whatever. Got my analogies are all over the shop today. But if that makes sense, like, yeah, that's there. But at the same time, like, you've got to grab the rope for God's sake and pull into the shore and got to do a little bit of work. Like, it's a kick back and go, oh, someone will tote me in. Sweet.
Yes.
That's not going to happen. And if it does, you're very lucky and very rare. But for 99% of us, that is not the story that we're going to live. Got to do the work, the inner work, the self-work, the work for others, the purpose. We have to have it all there. And if we don't have it all there, what's the point of the living and the connecting? You said it takes a village. I agree. Can we get back to a point where we create our own village? I created a community in my facility. Like, that is my village. I want to give to that village as much as I possibly can. And I want and I want everyone that walks in there to feel like they're part of something, not just a number, not just another person on a treadmill, not just another person doing a set of deadlifts. Like, what's like that? If you ever felt the power of a gym that can give you the opposite to that, like, I'm giving you health and fitness goals, but I can give you a connection and a community, you will never train anywhere else. And that's why we've done so well for 11 years. It's because of that. But totally agree. See it the same way.
When you are pulling that rope to achieve your goals, to get to where you want to be, don't let other people try and drag you down. Like, we live in a society, tall poppy syndrome, and we want to cut each other down.
He's doing well. Let's stuff him up for a bit.
And it's like the crabs in the bucket, one crab's trying to get out and the others are just trying to nip and pull you down. This is your journey. Don't let anyone's opinions, anyone's thoughts, judgments, any of that drag you down, because at the end of the day, you need to do this for you because you only get one life. We don't know when life is going to get cut short. Could be today, tomorrow, next week, next year. We don't know. So you've got to take it day by day, second by second, which we mentioned before, and make the most of it and just live in the present moment.
Yeah. It's so easy to get caught off guard, but then we all know how to live this life. Put the action in, put the work in.
Exactly. And not letting, a lot of times we wait for these big shifts in our life to happen, like losing a loved one or illness or something like that, to actually make change in your life. And it's like, why do you need something like that to finally make a change? And what I looked into is because it's hard and we're only going to make big change when it becomes easy or necessary to do so.
Yep.
If not, we'll just stay in our comfort zone our whole lives.
That's the whole, the first chapter of my life, 15 years, that day before I left home and the day after, that switch was automatically flipped. Like, that traumatic event can do that for you. Hence the car crash, hence the sickness, hence the diagnosis that you don't want to hear, the partner leaving you after 10 years, like that stuff. They're going to create sometimes a massive amount of emotion in you to make a change. But why do we need that? Why do we need to suffer first to be able to be successful in some of these endeavors in our lives? We don't. That's a choice. We don't have to wait for that to happen. We can start now. We can start today. And small wins, journaling, nutrition. We know what makes us feel good as humans. We know what makes us feel good mentally, physically, and emotionally. We need to start doing more and more of that every opportunity that we get. And if we don't have the power, then we need to talk. And if we can talk and we can tell others that we need more power because we don't have it, then we get help. We get lifted up and we get surrounded by a group of people or a tribe of people, a herd of people who will then tell us, hey, you need to change your shirt. You haven't changed your shirt in 3 days. What's wrong? I know you told me that you weren't feeling so great. Maybe you should have a shave and come out and hang out with us or whatever it might be, because if we don't have that conversation, people don't know, then we don't have the herd around us. We don't have the tribe around us, nipping us when we're doing the things that don't correlate with the way that tribe or that herd is living. So I think in my mind, I'm like, the more we can talk, the more we can put out there, the better. Because of that, I'm going to look around and go, oh man, XO giving me a hard time to actually have a shower. I don't feel like I have the energy, but he's right. Should have a shower. I'm glad I talked to him. You know what I mean? Like, it is, I'm going to have a shower and I feel better. feel that it's like liquid sleep. I feel better and I can think clearer. And he's like, oh, you mentioned the other day that eating was good. I might try that, because I told him that I wasn't feeling so good, and I've been able to connect my thoughts recently, and I've been feeling quite bummed out. And maybe that's because I have Macca's every meal. Maybe I'll try a steak and veg. Maybe I'll try a veg-based meal, but it is what it is, and I'm going to start doing it. I'm like, luckily I put that out there. Lucky I had that conversation. Lucky I spoke up, because I didn't have the power to do it myself. I needed some help.
Yeah.
Needed a tribe or a herd. Like,
yeah.
Powerful.
Yeah, we have that awareness piece a lot of the times. It's just taking action on it.
Yep.
And that's why, like with the podcast now, it's like, okay, how can we transmute that awareness, especially when it comes to mental health? There's a lot of awareness out there now, but how can we transmute that awareness into actionable steps that men can actually take to build their mental fitness, to reconnect within their mind, body, and spirit? It's so pivotal. We need to be able to do that. If we have the awareness, it's like, let's take action on it, because I'm a big believer in actions speak louder than words.
The quickest thing I've seen, the best way to do it is to build your community. I facilitate communities at the moment in regards to health and nutrition. And without that community, I am the facilitator in that. Like, I hold space for those people to eat well and to do that stuff. However, without them, I wouldn't be doing it either. Like, it's amazing that they don't even realize, yes, I created a facility and a group for that to happen in. But without them, without their connection, without us bouncing our ideas and conversations off each other, I wouldn't have the power to continually do that day in and day out. So it's that action because of that. I do this, they do that. They do this, I do this. Like this like ping pong.
Yeah.
It's happening.
I was having this conversation today, like, you're a part of the community now, and the value that you've given, other people are going to see that within the community. So
I hope so, yeah.
It's fucking awesome. And as we start to wrap up, where can the people find you and support what you do?
So I own a gym, I own a facility called CrossFit HF, the People's Gym. That's a good name for it.
That.
The People's Gym. That's where people go to connect, but also get healthy and fit. So, we've got CrossFit HF. Like I said a couple of times, run 2 podcasts. One where I just talk about things that I enjoy to talk about. Remember, my message from me to me via the world. And that's Shane.talks. That's on Instagram and all social media. Actually only Instagram, but all major podcasting platforms. And then we've got the People First podcast. So People First podcast is all about people's journeys, trials, tribulations. Some of my clients have lost 50, 60 kilos. We talk about that. Some of my clients have had, premature twins. Some of my clients have battled eating disorders. Some of my clients have been social media superstars. Like, whatever it is, it's their journey. How did this happen? What happened? What was your biggest up? What was your biggest down? How did you get through it? Who was there for you? So that's that. And then, just Shane Richards on any of like Facebook, Instagram. They're the two I really use, to be honest.
You may not have seen it all, but we have a closing tradition on the podcast where the previous guests ask the next guest a question. So the question I've got for you today is, what is the biggest thing holding you back right now?
Who asked that? What was their name? Good question. Good question. So for me to answer that question, I would probably have to think about it in 2 ways. What am I not doing that I know I should be doing? So knowing is very different to doing. Like, I know, like you said, awareness. What am I not doing? And that might be what's holding me back. How do I know? I don't know yet, because I haven't done it. And if I haven't done it and I don't value it yet because I haven't done it, I need to do something so simple and so easy every single day that revolves around that thing I'm not doing, that I can't fail, and then make my own decision. Because I always bring it back to, everyone tells me I should do what I'm doing, but I don't see the value in it. So show me that there's no value in it. Give me some data to show me that. And then if there's that question, what are you doing now that's holding you back? Sorry. Maybe it's not doing that enough. Maybe I should do that more. Maybe I should start doing that with every avenue, like with my relationship with my wife. What am I not doing in my relationship with my wife that is holding us back? There's stuff that I could do better in my business. What am I not doing that's holding me back? Good question, right? Maybe it's those things I need to prove to myself. What's the simplest thing I can do to make sure I can do it every single day to prove to myself that it's either valuable or not valuable? That in my fitness, that's the walking and the training, whatever. Nutrition, choosing not to eat like a dickhead every day and eating like a sensible human, all that stuff. Good question. And that's my answer, really. More often, more frequently, how can I do it without failing?
Love that. It's either you're not doing it or you're not doing it enough.
Yep.
That's awesome. Shane, it's been a pleasure, bro.
Thanks, bud. Cheers.
Man, I've really, really enjoyed this podcast.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.